Ravi Jhunjhunwala of HEG joins us to give us a brief sense of what's exactly happening. If I see the counter, it's down almost 10% in trade. Good afternoon, Mr. Jhunjhunwala. I think the trigger that's come out on HEG currently is the fact that Nomura visited some companies in China, and what their findings are that local companies have become more compliant with environmental norms. They say that proper measures have been taken by large companies to increase graphite electrode production and expand production of key needle coke. Is that a big concern because prices have prices actually started coming down, and is this true of what's happening in China?
You see, I just clarified 5 minutes back to another channel. We are talking of two different kinds of products. What we and the Japanese and the Americans produce is what we call ultra-high power electrodes, which are typically required by very large, difficult furnaces. And China does 80-90% of non-UHP, which are meant for different kinds of furnaces, smaller furnaces, easier furnaces. So China has never been competing with us, or in other words, we have never been competing with China, so to say, because we are in totally two different kinds of products within the electrode space. So that's number one. Number two, China closed somewhere in the region of 200 to 300,000 tons of capacity in electrodes over the last 6 to 9 months. So even if one capacity has come back in operation, it's hardly going to make any difference. China has never been importing the ultra-high power electrodes from us or from the Western sources, and China will not import even in the future. So that's number one. Number two, as far as the pricing is concerned, our quarter-on-quarter numbers, our quarter-on-quarter sales realizations have been increasing, and as we speak, we are just preparing for our annual report in the next 3-4 weeks. And our sales realization in this quarter, the January-March quarter, is substantially higher than what it was in the previous one. And for the next 2 quarters at least, for which we are more or less fully booked up, our realizations are higher than what we've had in, let's say, January-March. So that is my clarification. And again, to put it into perspective, China doesn't have the technology for what we call the ultra-high power electrodes. So what they closed in the past and what they may have been restarting a little bit here and there is all non-UHP electrodes. Okay. And again, because China has added more than 20-25 million tons of electric arc furnace in the last 6 to 9 months, which need more than 50,000 tons of electrodes. So out of 250 to 300,000 tons capacities, which they probably closed in the last 12 months, even if 10 or 20,000 tons of capacities are coming back on track, against an increase in demand of more than 50-60,000 tons that they already have today as of now, because they've added 20 million tons, and in the next 9 months or so, they are adding another 30 million tons. So in a gap of about a year and a half, China would be adding a capacity of like 50 million tons of electric arc furnace, which needs more than 150,000 tons of electrodes. So if you ask me frankly, I, as the management of HEG, I'm not even bothered about this report. I mean, whatever they may say, whatever they may have gone, somebody has gone and seen something in China. But as far as I'm concerned, I really don't bother about this report at all.
Okay, a couple of follow-up questions.
And I'm currently in Japan, okay, where I have met a couple of Japanese producers. I've met a couple of Japanese suppliers of coke, because you spoke about our raw material, needle coke. They don't see anything. Okay. They don't see any change at all. There is a tremendous shortage of electrodes. Similarly, there's a tremendous shortage of our raw material, which has been there for the last 12 months or so. And so as far as I see, I have not seen any change at all.
Mr. Jhunjhunwala, just one quick follow-up question on this, because I think the entire pricing issue or the price rise that happened was because it started when, China started putting in environmental norms on when their EAFs started shutting down, that is where the prices of electrodes and needle coke also ballooned. So isn't that the case from where it started?
No, it didn't start because of the EAF shutting down. What happened was China has closed somewhere in the region of 120 to 150 million tons of blast furnaces and induction furnaces. And they have added electric arc furnace. So electrodes are used in the electric arc furnace. So in fact, they've closed the blast furnace and induction furnace where electrodes are not used, and they are the ones which are the polluting kind of steel production, steel capacity. So China is moving from the polluting steel producing types of companies to, let's say, the electric arc furnace, which is much less polluting, which is where the electrodes are used. So it didn't happen because of the closures of EAF. In fact, as I said, China has added 20 million tons of EAFs in the last 12 months. And as we speak, we know for sure that in 2018, they're adding another 30 million tons. So in the last 18 months or so, they would have added 50 million tons of...
How much do you export to China, sir?
Additional...
Mr. Jhunjhunwala, can you hear me? I think
what their production is, and this is what the grade of electrodes they need. And as far as the rest of the world is concerned, China was not importing the ultra-high power electrodes. China was not exporting these electrodes anywhere else in the world. So it has very little impact on, let's say, at least the Western world of graphite producers.
Sir, do you export anything to China currently? Because you said that this is big opportunity. So is that not an opportunity? So
no,
do you produce...
No, you're not. No, you didn't get me. I mean, it is not an opportunity for us because we don't produce those low-grade electrodes.
Okay. Just a sense on how the pricing is. Prices have moved up. Do you see them, at what level do you see them peaking, or what's the current? And you spoke about realizations being higher. Can you put a number to it, sir?
No, I'm not supposed to be doing that publicly, especially right now because we've just closed our financial year, and I'm not supposed to give the numbers. But as I said, in the last 3-4 quarters, every quarter our realizations have gone up. And as I just said, for the next 2 quarters, for which we are more or less fully booked, these realizations are further going up.
Okay. So what's the outlook on the needle coke prices? Because that's a key raw material. Do you see their prices moving in tandem or much higher than what it is?
No, needle coke prices are going up. So are the electrode prices going up. And there's a huge shortage of needle coke in any case. So that's the situation.
You see the spread. I mean, you see the spread being at the current level. You don't see the spreads narrowing down, at least in the near future.
No, we are seeing the spreads going up.
Okay.
Not remaining where they are.
Okay. And is there any level you see that prices should again start moving down, or probably you see that the peak has come in?
No, as I said, you see, for the next 6 months, which is very clearly visible, we don't see that. But beyond that, I don't know. But the structural change which has happened due to China is going to remain. And as I was explaining in another discussion with somebody, I mean, a new capacity for the ultra-high power electrode takes anywhere between 3 to 4 years to build. And there are only 3 or 4 players in this world who produce ultra-high power electrodes. And none of them have announced any expansions as yet. None of them have announced any expansions or any new greenfield ventures. So you don't see anything happening, at least in the next 2-3 years' time. There could be a little bit of expansions here and there, but nothing much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jhunjhunwala, for clarifying what exactly seems to be the concern that the street has at this point of time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.